make sure to follow us on Instagram at Whistlethrowers. It's a great way to interact with our show. Our DMs are always open for questions, topic discussions, and more. You will be able to find our new episodes and other announcements there. Move the ball down the field using McCaffrey as minimal as possible.
Okay, welcome back to the season opener of the Whistlethrowers podcast. This is Jack Mobar, joined by
Jack Slaymaker.
And so right now, when we're recording this is the Tuesday before the NFL season starts, so we're going to give a little preview to the seasons, give predictions, and talk about the biggest storylines ahead of the NFL season. So for me, my biggest concern is Joe Burrow not really giving much details about his calf injury, still, and it's been 2 weeks since he's been taken out of practice.
Yeah, I agree with you. I drafted him on my fantasy team, so I'm really banking on this to work out for him. But honestly, with Joe Burrow's personality, it kind of feels to me like this is kind of the road he would take for an injury, regardless of what it was. I think that he wants to keep it under wraps. I don't think he wants to know. I don't think he wants to create a distraction to the team, because if he's not going to be starting week one, that's going to be the storyline. And I'm sure that him and the rest of the team and the coaching staff, they all want the storyline to be on the game itself, not whether he's playing or not.
Yeah, I agree about that. If Joe Burrow does miss week one, the Bengals need to find a good backup quarterback. Because right now it's Jake Browning, who I'm not too familiar with. He apparently graduated from Washington. Has 1 year of experience. That's not enough for me to be the starting quarterback week one. Here's something that is interesting, though. There is one quarterback available if a starter like Joe Burrow were to miss week one and possibly miss extended time as well. Carson Wentz is still available.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that the big reason why he hasn't been signed at this point is because he wants to be a starter. If Burrow is to miss week one and possibly future weeks, I don't think it would be a huge risk for the Bengals to sign Carson Wentz.
I actually agree with you there. And, that might be sounding rich coming from an Eagles fan, but I think when you look at the Carson Wentz situation with an objective perspective, I think you handle Carson Wentz like you do any other backup quarterback. I mean, you don't go into a game with your backup quarterback saying, we're relying on his arm. No, you ground and pound. You get him rhythm throws, things that are easy to read, get the ball out of his hand quickly. I think we've talked about this before with other QBs. I don't think the situation with Carson Wentz is so dire. I don't know why teams aren't taking a shot on him. And if there wasn't so much history, I'd want the Eagles to sign Carson Wentz as their backup. I don't think the Eagles are strong enough at the backup, and I think that's the case with many teams. I don't know why teams aren't looking to upgrade a little bit right here.
Yeah, obviously we're Eagles fans. We remember how good Wentz was when he had great receivers.
Right.
I could see him having a great year like he did in Philly.
Right.
If he did go to the Bengals, because you got three of the best receivers over there, and consistent run game, that would be the spot that would revive Carson Wentz's career, if anywhere.
Yeah, and you're right there. And it's not like he's going to need to play a full season. It's not like the Bengals are going to be relying on him. He just needs to keep them afloat for, the first couple weeks, however long Burrow's out. And I think you're right. You made a great point. It wasn't Carson Wentz wasn't necessarily good because of his weapons, but you're right. He benefited greatly by having a top 3 tight end in the league, a top 10 number 1 receiver in the league at that time. Nelson Aguilar was his third option, who caught nearly 1,000 yards and over 7 touchdowns that season. And you look at the Bengals offense, it is probably more stacked than that Eagles offense back then. I mean, you have a better weapon at running back. You have 2 better receivers. I mean, Chase and Higgins are miles better than Alshon Jeffrey and Nelson Aguilar.
Mm-hmm. So I did see ESPN made a list of teams that they're projecting to incline from their last season and teams that they're expected to decline through this upcoming season. I was wondering if you guys had any key teams for either side of the coin.
I think my first one would be the New York Jets. I think when you look at the New York Jets from that perspective, the obvious addition is the QB. It's blatantly obvious. But I think some of the things that went under the radar for the New York Jets this offseason. Number one, keep paying Quinnen Williams, and more importantly, keeping him happy. Quinnen Williams wanted to be with the Jets. He wanted an extension. It was just where they fell on the money part of it. They were able to reach the agreement. They gave up some leverage on their side. Quinnen Williams is happy. You have a top 3 defensive tackle potentially in the league this year. Sauce Gardner is a freak. For my decline team, I'm not really sure if this is going to age very well, but I'm going to say the Dallas Cowboys. This is completely unbiased. This is me looking at their situation objectively like I was looking at Carson Wentz. The Cowboys have a lot of turmoil right now. Their defense looks really good. I'm not sold on the additions to their offense. I'm not sold on Brandon Cooks. He's aging. He's declining. I'm not sold on him. I don't think he takes them anywhere. And guys, they just traded for Dak Prescott's replacement. Let's get that real. Right there. They traded for Dak Prescott's replacement. That there is no reason they would be trading for Trey Lance to be their backup, especially for a 4th round pick. There's no reason. I don't like where their season is headed. And in the NFL today, your defense cannot carry you to a 10-win season. It can't. I see the Cowboys at 8-9 wins.
Okay, and they had 11, 12 last
12
year?
last year. Okay. 12.
Damn, that's high.
Yeah, I know. But, I mean, the schedule gets tougher. They have to play a different Jets team this year. I believe they play the AFC East just like the Eagles do. So
they kind of do division.
Right.
Yeah.
So they get Buffalo, Miami, New York, and I just don't know how well they match up with those teams. I mean, Dallas's defense is great, but isn't Miami's defense great? Isn't the Jets' defense great? Isn't the Bills' defense great? So you're looking at that game with a huge disparity on the offensive side of the ball. I really fear for the Cowboys this year.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that the Cowboys will definitely see a decline just based on everything you said. My team that I see on the uprise is the Pittsburgh Steelers.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Giving Kenny Pickett his good second year. I think George Pickens is one of the most underrated wide receivers. Even though people talk about his crazy catches that he has, nobody talks about the year that he had, even though Kenny Pickett really struggled at certain points of the season. And they have an improved offensive line. I think Najee Harris will definitely benefit from that. And their defense is still set. You have one of the best defensive players in the league in TJ Watt. I don't see how this team shouldn't be considered at least for a wild card spot. Possibly fight the Bengals for the division if Joe Burrow doesn't stay healthy. Team I see on the decline. This one I'm not 100% sure about. I'm going to go Buffalo Bills.
Woo!
I think that the division is very competitive. I think that they got 13 wins last year.
Yep.
I don't see that happening again.
I agree with that.
Just with the Jets being better, I still see them having a great season. I think they can get to 11 or 12. Getting to 13, I think that's their peak. And I just don't see that happening again, especially with the fact that they were playing their best football last year and still did nothing in the playoffs. That's going to, I think, fundamentally hurt them in this season.
I really agree with that, and I'm interested to see what you have to say about that, Jack, because you've been really hard on the Bills this whole offseason. And I've actually agreed with you multiple times on this. I don't think Josh Allen is a problem, but I'm not really sold on his game being a winning style. I hate to make this comparison because we talked about Joel Embiid so much at the end of the season, but I kind of see where the comparison is drawn between Josh Allen and Joel Embiid because they're both incredible talents, but does their play style translate to winning? We have yet to see, and I think you make a really good point, Aiden. I've talked about this with Jack. I think Miami and New York both jumped them this season. And that's not to say that Buffalo will miss the playoffs necessarily. I just don't think that they match up well team to team versus those two. And I think with the Jets, they're going to have a third place schedule. Or did they finish fourth? Or was it New England finished fourth?
New England
No,
finished.
New England
okay.
finished fourth.
So Jets have a third place schedule, and Miami is having a second place schedule this year. And Buffalo, you play first place schedule, and you did not make any significant signings or improvements to your team, in my opinion.
Yeah, that is fair. They actually lost a couple guys in the offseason too, which doesn't get talked about.
Yeah. And the drama with Diggs, it's
Yeah.
just setting up for disaster. I can see that.
So you guys kind of took a couple. I had the Jets, but it was obvious. But I probably wasn't even going to say it. I had who did Aiden's? I had the Bills declining too.
Yeah. I
So
knew you
this
would.
is kind of obvious as well. But I have the Bears on a major incline this year.
Yeah.
I have the Broncos on an incline. I don't really have any logic behind this, but I just don't think that you could have a worse season than they did last year, possibly.
Mm-hmm.
For teams on the decline, obviously I'm going Bills, but I don't need to talk further on that. I'm going the 49ers because of their quarterback situation. I don't really trust Brock Purdy coming back with that elbow injury received by Hassan Reddick, and I don't trust Sam Darnold behind him any more than I trust Brock Purdy, to be the starter. So
Yeah.
I think if Brock Purdy doesn't play exactly the way he left off in the NFC divisional round, then they're in trouble. And I think if, God forbid, Sam Darnold doesn't go in, they're in even more trouble.
Yeah.
And my other team that I have on the decline is the Eagles. Okay, well, before I sound crazy right here, they went 14-3 and they went to the Super Bowl. If they go 12-5 and go to the NFC Championship game and lose, that's a decline technically.
Yeah.
So there's not really much you can improve from 14-3 in a Super Bowl appearance. The only reason I'm not saying the Chiefs is because I feel more confident about them getting back to where they were than the Eagles this year.
Mm-hmm. I can see your point with that, but I don't know. I mean, the Chiefs have to run through an absolute bloodbath in the AFC.
Yeah, the Phillies, the Eagles' schedule is miles harder than the Chiefs. So.
No, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't hate that pick. I sort of thought the Eagles would be on a decline as well, just because of what you said. They peaked so high last year. Same thing we said about the Bills. It's really hard to duplicate a great season like that. I will say, for the Eagles compared to the Bills, I think the Eagles didn't necessarily make any huge signings, but they did really, really well in the draft. And they did enough where losing Hargrave isn't going to be detrimental to where losing a lot of guys like the Bills did will probably hurt them because they didn't do enough in the draft or in free agency to cover the holes that they lost.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I want to revisit your 49ers point too, because I actually, originally when you said the Eagles, I disagreed. And then you and Aiden actually both had good explanations. Like, those make complete sense. And now I actually agree with you on that. But I want to revisit the 49ers because I want to bring up something else. I want to bring up 2 points. Number one, this is something I've heard from Iowa State fans. When Brock Purdy is good, he's really good. But when Brock Purdy is bad, he loses you games. And he's a turnover machine. That is a red flag right there for the 49ers. Number two, this is going to be Christian McCaffrey's first full year in a 49ers offense. And if the QB situation isn't doing well, you are going to have to lean on him. History tells us that when you lean on Christian McCaffrey specifically, he gets hurt.
Yeah.
And I think for the 49ers, a key this year for their offense is going to be move the ball down the field using McCaffrey as minimal as possible. And what I mean by that is, obviously you're going to get him a lot of touches, but you don't want him surpassing 25 touches a game. I think if you keep him 15 to 20, you're going to be fine with weapons like Kittle and Samuel. But if your QB isn't doing well, he's going to have to touch the ball 25 times.
Yeah, I think the main motivation was getting him was like not having Debo do all the offensive
That's
work. And
what
if
it
he
was.
goes
Yeah.
down, like he's going to have to go back into that role, and then he's going to get burnt out like he did years prior. And like
Right.
he didn't even really like that role to begin with, so he's going to get disgruntled with the team
Yeah.
if he has to like take multiple different. Like, he's basically Taysom Hill, but, like, a million times better.
Yeah, right. And, like, doesn't throw the ball that much. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I hear you. Their defense is scary, though. I think
Yeah.
their defense is actually good enough to carry them to a bunch of wins.
They really should try and trade for a starting quarterback.
Yeah, I think you have to let it play out a little bit first. because let's be real, you have amazing weapons with guys like Kittle and Samuel, like I said, and they have had no continuity at the QB position. I think you owe it to them to give Brock Purdy everything that you have. You know what I mean? I think you owe it to those weapons.
Yeah.
Because it's got to be tough. I mean, you bounce from Garoppolo, Lance, Purdy, Josh Johnson in the NFC Championship. Like, it's tough. And I feel like for the 49ers, this has been a question for them like every single year to start the season is, are we going to finish with the same QB? And
They really should have kept Jimmy G, in my opinion.
Maybe. I think they kind of fell into a Pandora's box with Brock Purdy. I'll agree with you there. But I'm not sure if Garoppolo was the answer. I know Aiden
I'm going to say
knows he's not.
Garoppolo was not the answer.
Yeah.
And I know that preseason doesn't mean a whole lot, but I was interested to see what Purdy's reps look like because we're talking about him coming back from a really, really bad elbow injury, and also the fact that you want to see if he's still developing as a quarterback. To me, I have not seen any of those red flags, Jack, that you talked about pop up during the preseason.
Mm-hmm.
I just haven't. And obviously, it could pop up in the regular season when you're playing more starting defenses. But to me, he looked just as solid as he did up into the playoff run until he got hurt. Mm-hmm. And if that's the Brock Purdy we see with as good as this 49ers defense is and as good as the offense is, there's no reason they can't compete for an NFC title.
Right.
I think it's still them and the Eagles are the top two teams, and it's up to some other team to compete with them.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, and it's gonna be someone who makes an incline, like we were just talking about, a team, and the Lions, the Seahawks. I think the Seahawks have a better chance than the Lions. I think the Lions are being overrated just a tad. I think just a tad they're being overrated. I think that Seattle has a better opportunity this year. I like Geno Smith more than I like Jared Goff. I hate to hate on Jared Goff because he's been good with Detroit, but I think if I had to put money on someone and I was betting that way, I think I go Geno Smith. I mean, the weapons are great. The defense is better than Detroit's, I think. I think I would take Seattle there, but even so, I don't know if they even sniff San Fran or Philly.
Well, they need to do it again, both of them.
Right, that's true.
Geno and Jared Goff, they were kind of like laughing stocks at the quarterback position before this year. And that's the thing. I wouldn't even put Hurts in the top two quarterbacks because he only had one really good year.
Mm-hmm.
And if they keep doing it, then they'll all stay in the top 10 quarterbacks. But for the meantime, I'm going to severely underrate them until they perform consistently at the position they did at their best year.
I just wanted to say quickly about my Lions point. The reason I like them so much compared to Seattle, to me, I'm pretty confident the 49ers are going to win their division, which means Seattle will have to play a road playoff game against a very hard opponent. Where Detroit, even if they finish 9-8 and Seattle finishes 11-6, Detroit gets a home playoff team against a much worse, maybe not much worse opponent, but a opponent that would be under them, and it would be at home for Detroit. So I think that gives you an advantage over what Seattle would have to do.
That's a good point right there. That is a really good point because I think for sure the NFC North is a leg or two down from the NFC West. And I feel like that's saying something because the Rams and Cardinals both might have top 5 picks this year.
Yeah.
But you're not going up against the San Francisco 49ers team.
I think the Cardinals might not win a game this year.
I heard that on the radio today, and I can't say I disagree. I mean, I don't think I've seen a team this bad. And
the guy who's running it is even worse.
Yeah. And they traded or they released Colt McCoy today and traded for Josh Dobbs. And I'm thinking back to the winless teams I remember, and it's freaking Cleveland in 2015 or 16. I forget which year it was. And even they had RG3 to start. I mean, RG3 wasn't good at that time, but he wasn't no Josh Dobbs or their backup is Clayton Thune or something or Tune. I mean, the other two I have no idea who they are.
Tune is look. I will say, as a really big fan of the AAC, Tune balled out at Houston. I just don't think the Cardinals have enough where he can even come close to duplicating that. And he fell the 5th round for a reason. Look, the AAC, I love it. And like I said, he did great at Houston. I don't think it's enough for me to say that he should be an absolute starting quarterback. And it seems like that's what he might have to do at some point.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I hate to do this too, but like, let's go through the AAC and count all the NFL starters from that conference, that just got drafted. They have one, I believe, and it was the Cincinnati linebacker, went undrafted and just got the starting nod for Minnesota. Like, I mean, it was just kind of a weak defensive conference as it was, I know you can attest to that, Aiden. It was pretty weak. And I mean, when you go through the list, like, I mean, we know how bad Temple was. We know, like, there are just more and more terrible teams now.
It's a lot like the old, I guess now we can call it the old Big 12, where it was much more offensively heavy.
Right,
I do agree with that.
Yeah, and I mean, I have to say, I don't want to completely trash the AAC. I want to give their props. Houston is a pretty good program. Cincinnati's a really good program, and Tulane is on the up.
Yeah. Don't forget about Sauce Gardner, though.
Right, yeah. No, that's right. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I can't forget about that. The best corner in the league, pretty much.
Yeah.
So, do you guys have any players that you think are going to have a breakout year or just, like, completely suck this year?
You go first, Aiden. I want to take a second.
Yeah, I was really high on Najee Harris last year, and it just didn't pan out the way I thought it was going to. I don't want to say I'm that high on him, but I will say that I'm very confident that he can be the running back that he was at Alabama. I mean, you think about Derrick Henry really struggled his first couple of years as well until Tennessee figured out how to actually properly use him. And I feel like Najee Harris is sort of the same thing, where Pittsburgh needs to figure out his offense. And as soon as they can do that, and like I said, I think they have a much better offensive line this year than last year. So I think that he can become that running back that I thought he was going to be last year. Players on the decline. It's hard for me to think of one like off the top of my head. The one guy I'm going to say, and I'm just saying it because I think this team is going to decline. I think that Justin Jefferson will probably decline just because he put up such crazy numbers. And I think that teams are going to start to figure out how to play the Minnesota Vikings. And with the loss of Dalvin Cook, now that means they basically have to rely on their passing. And I just don't know if that's sustainable all the way through the end of the season, especially when teams really have to focus on him. Plus, you have to remember that Adam Thieling's no longer on the team either.
Right.
So they really just have the one option in Jefferson. And he'll still put up great numbers because he's a great wide receiver, but it's not going to be the numbers like we saw last year.
You don't trust Alexander Mattinson?
I do not, unfortunately. Look, he's still a good wide receiver, but you have to sort of figure out with rookies how to use them, and it's just not the same threat as Thielen is. And again, also the loss of Dalvin Cook is going to be a really big factor as well.
Yeah, I definitely can agree with you there. So for my breakout player, this is a little biased for me because I watched him a lot at Penn State, and I just loved his game. But Pat Freiermuth from the Pittsburgh Steelers, you alluded to this earlier, Aiden. I also agree with you that the Pittsburgh Steelers are going to have a way better year than they did last year offensively. I think Pickett is going to take a step. I think that I was actually down on him going into the year, and I thought when the season started and he was looking really slow after he came in for Mitch Trubisky, I thought I was going to be right. But I think that down the stretch he proved that he can hang in this league, at least for now. I think there's something to build on there, definitely. And we've seen this a lot, just as Eagles fans, how important a tight end is to a quarterback. Someone that's a safety blanket, reliable pass catcher, and can block for you in the run. I think Freiermuth can do that pretty well. And I think he's a very, very reliable target. He's a good route runner. He's quick for a tight end. He's athletic. I think he's going to be a really good option for Kenny Pickett this year, especially when you have Deontay Johnson and George Pickens on the outside. I think that opens the door for guys like Freiermuth and, like you said, Najee Harris even to get involved in the passing game and really help that. I think Freiermuth is going to have a really good year this year. I think people are going to be talking about him. And then I also have one more just because I want to throw him in for an incline. Agbo Okoronkwo on Cleveland. I've talked about him a couple times. He flew so far under the radar last year on a horrendous Houston Texans defense. I don't even think the FBI would catch him. He was a beast last year. And I'm ready for him to take another leap because he was in such a bad defense and put up good numbers. And now he's going to a system with Myles Garrett on the opposite side of him. I mean, I just can't see how this doesn't work out for Cleveland. I thought that was a great signing at a great price. And I'll do my decline player really quick. Derrick Henry. I just don't see the numbers being put up this year. I don't think his talent will go anywhere. But, I mean, that roster is another one that looks depleted. And it's tough for a guy like him, especially when he's dealt with some injuries the past couple of years. When guys aren't going to be blocking for you all that well, it's dangerous. And I don't really like where the season's headed for him and the Titans.
I was going to say him, but then I remembered I had him on fantasy, so I picked someone else.
Yeah.
But yeah, that roster is cooked, and I don't know what his future is going to be like there. They're definitely going to work him. And I think if anyone's going to be able to be worked, it's going to be him. So if anyone can make the most out of it, it's him. But he's definitely going to have a decline year from 2 seasons ago. I don't even want to count last year because he missed half the games.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
But, okay, so I have 2 incline and 2 decline players. I'll start with the incline guys. First one, Sky Moore. This is basically situational because Juju's out and he's projected to be the wide receiver 1 for the best quarterback in the NFL. So, yeah, not too much to elaborate on there. It was just completely situational, but I do think he has a lot more upside than a Marquez Valdes-Scantling or anyone else in that receiver room. The rookie that I have for incline, Sam Howell. Remember that name. He had a great preseason, and he has the keys to that offense, and they have a lot of weapons. They have arguably 2 top 20 running backs, Scary Terry,
Dotson.
Is Samuel still on the team?
Yep.
Yeah, that's enough. That's all I need to say.
Yeah.
You're also forgetting the biggest piece that Washington added at coaching and Eric Bieniemy.
Right.
Oh,
yeah. I forgot about that.
One of the best offenses in football. And now you're giving Hal that sort of production. I just wanted to add on to that because I think that's a really
good point.
add on to what you're saying.
Mm-hmm. I did forget about that completely, but that just adds on completely.
Yeah. Totally.
They're in great hands, except for the owner. On the decline, I got DeAndre Swift. I'm not buying the hype because he never stays healthy, and
hasn't had a great camp.
No, and the Eagles, I don't really understand why they traded for him, if I'm being honest, because, the running back committee has worked for, 10 years at least at this point, and you're trying to get, an every down running back who doesn't stay healthy. I just don't buy it. If he does stay healthy, I don't think he'll be, a top 10 running back either way. I just don't think he has the talent to, squeak in there. For a rookie that I don't think is going to do well, I don't want to say Bryce Young because Aiden's going to beat me to it. Come back to me. Shit.
I'll do a rookie that I don't think will do well. I mean, I think Devon Witherspoon on Seattle kind of has some questions right now. He's looked good in training camp from what I've seen coming out from Seattle, but I know we saw 2 of the greatest rookie cornerback seasons last year with Woolen and Gardner. But generally speaking, rookie cornerbacks don't always start off so hot. And I think him playing opposite Woolen is going to cause some issues for him to earlier in the season. I don't know if he'll have the season that people are expecting a 5th overall pick to have, and I think he kind of will be shaky to start. I think his career will be good, but I think talking about year 1, I think he's going to run into some issues.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not really familiar with him. I see his sports cards all the time.
He's
though.
really good. He was great at Illinois. I mean, he deserved to be a top 10 pick for sure, especially at a premium position. But it's kind of like a tackle. Like Andrew Thomas last year for the Giants started off very poor and people were concerned, but he turned it around quicker than expected even. And my point being in that is it happens with tackles, it happens with QBs, like a lot of these positions where you are a rookie and you can kind of just get thrust into it. They struggle sometimes, and I think that you're going to see growing pains with him.
Okay. Oh yeah, I do have one more incline player. Aaron Rodgers. He's going to win MVP this year. He's back with Hackett.
Mm-hmm.
What did he do the last 2 seasons he was with Hackett?
Won MVP.
And he has a way better team now.
Yeah,
So
he does have a better team than he's had in Green Bay for a while.
Mm-hmm. So, any objections?
No. Actually, I want to add one more incline. Garrett Wilson.
Yeah.
Because you brought up Aaron Rodgers. Just that.
Yeah. The one incline I want to add, and it's not necessarily an incline, it's just a guy I think that's flown under the radar because he's on such a bad team, and it is the Texans, but it's not C.J. Stroud. I'm really high on Will Anderson.
That's a good one.
That might be one of the best draft picks the Texans had, because obviously they got their franchise quarterback, and I said this on draft night too, but I think that Will Anderson playing with a defensive-minded coach, DeMeco Ryans, his game is going to open up so much. And I think if you run some of these blitzes with the linebackers that I think Ryan will probably want to run, because you're going to need a blitz with such a bad team, that's going to open up so much space for Anderson to get around on the edge. I can see this working out very well for the Texans. They're not going to win a lot of games. They're probably going to finish 4th in their division. Actually, they will finish 4th in their division. But I think that you will see some of these young guys have really, really good years. And I think that if we're going to go between Stroud and Anderson, I think you're going to see Anderson develop much more quickly than you will with Stroud.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay.
Very true.
Yeah. Are you guys nervous that he had like a shaky preseason?
Stroud?
Yeah.
Man, I think that the Texans are just a flat out bad team.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he is going to struggle a lot, but I think that certain guys have to go through a really bad year, and then your career will go on the uprise. Look, Peyton Manning, people forget, had one of the worst rookie years of all time.
Yeah.
The Colts finished 3-13, get way more interceptions than touchdowns, and people thought that he was going to be a bust as well. So we obviously now behind the scenes what Peyton Manning turned into. I could see the same thing happening to C.J. Stroud. This is not a good Texans team. They do have to play in a very competitive AFC South, maybe not a great division. But look, I think the Colts are still going to be somewhat of a problem, especially now that they have a quarterback picked out in Anthony Richardson. The Titans still will win a couple of games, and Jacksonville is one of those teams that was really on an upcline that we didn't get to talk about. But I think they could be a team that finishes a sneaky second in the AFC.
Damn,
I could see it.
Yeah.
Definitely third.
I really forgot about them. I should have said them over the Jets. I should have brought them up because I loved their roster. And like I said this last season when we were talking about the Jaguars. I said I loved their defense. They have that one linebacker from Nigeria who just is all over the field. His hair's on fire. I actually like their defense. Their safety Cisco is pretty good. They need to upgrade with their pass rushing and their corner, which ironically are 2 of the most important positions on the defense. But I think that they have enough where their defense can hold up at least. I don't see them winning the AFC by any stretch. I just don't think they match up well enough with the teams that have elite defenses. I mean, you go through the list. There are not only great elite quarterbacks in the AFC, there are elite defenses. Jets, Miami, Buffalo, Kansas City has an elite defense. Like, these are teams with a lot of pedigree, a lot of experience. I didn't even throw in Cincinnati. So I don't see the Jaguars necessarily competing with those teams, but I agree with you because they play in a bad division, and I could see them winning enough games to get a 2 or 3. I agree with you there.
Okay. Do you guys have anything else with the NFL?
Watch out for Nolan Smith this year.
Nolan Roquan Smith.
Edge rusher for the Eagles.
Okay.
That's my last point.
Dude, I'm really excited to see a lot of these rookie defensive players, maybe more so than the offense, which I rarely ever say.
Yeah.
But that just goes around the whole NFL going off of that point.
Yeah. You made a good point earlier, too, Aiden, with CJ Stroud. I meant to piggyback off this.
Yeah.
It was just what I was talking about with Witherspoon with the growing pains. I mean, you're on a bad team, and it's a premium position that you're just getting thrust into. He's going to have growing pains, but I think we're going to look in year 2, year 3, year 4 of Stroud and say he's knocking on the door top 10. I don't think that's outlandish to say at all.
Yeah, so I'm going to save the fantasy football talk for next week since the three of us didn't have our draft.
Yeah.
We're all in the same division, by the way. I don't know if you guys know this.
No, I didn't
but...
see that. Yeah, I wasn't about to give away my fantasy football secrets this year.
Yeah, no, I was going to say we should talk about who we think is slipping in the draft boards. And nope, not happening. Not until we draft.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I did get a suggestion that we should do sports trivia, so I will start off. Who is the only NBA MVP to score 15 points and 5 for 18 shooting in the second round of a Game 7 and lose?
Okay, that's Joel Embiid, obviously.
Ding, ding, ding.
I don't know. Did you research that?
No, I just
Yeah,
made it
okay. I don't know if that's
specific.
true. I don't think
I
that's
made
true.
it oddly specific, so...
Yeah.
Okay, losing in the second round while scoring 15, 5 for 18 shooting, no one else.
I mean, that's very specific, though, but I think there have been a ton of MVPs who shit the bed in a Game 7. In the second round.
Not like him.
I think exactly like him, actually.
Okay, we will end it there. We'll catch you next week. I'm going to try and get this episode out before the season starts. All right, and we'll catch you guys next week, and you'll get weekly NFL coverage and other trending sports topics. See ya.